Right, and we're live. Hello, everyone. This is Martin from Hyper. I'm John here with Josh from Yubico. We have a great content today, and we want to share a little bit on our story, securing the future of financial access. We have a lot of material to cover, a lot of thoughts to share, and also the main item is going to be like one of our success stories with a financial institution. So yeah, let's move into a quick intro. Josh, you want to start with sharing a little bit about yourself?
Sure. My name is Josh Signa. I'm a solutions architect here at Yubico, makers of the YubiKey. I was a practicing practitioner for about 14 years before moving over to Yubico, and since then I have focused mostly on the regulatory and compliance impacts in our space, focused on the private sector. Martine, back to you.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's great having you here. We have been also collaborating together as part of the Fire Alliance. So it's great to have you join this conversation with us. Martin Gallo here. I'm Director of Product Management at Hyper. My background is more on the offensive security. I started like a lot of years ago breaking stuff. And at some point, decided to move into building and try to fix the world. So Sean Hyper, 2 years ago, I have been working on our authenticate solution and also a risk-based and policy-based approach. So having fun with all the integrations that we have been driving and especially working with Yubico for a while already, right? We from Hyper have been partners with Yubico for years, right? And it's been great seeing how this impacted in our customers and all the work that we have been doing through the years. Um, the last year too, and this started even before, right? But last year was kind of a fundamental for us because we decided to double down in our partnership and our relationship. We have been working a lot recently, right? So last year we launched our joint solution for the YubiKey Bio multi-protocol edition. That's going to be part of the conversation today because is one of the main drivers for this success story we have to share with some of our customers. But the whole story behind it is about like putting together like a strong solution that combines like the benefits and the good things of both, right? The Yubico approach and the Hyper approach. So we think this is definitely fundamental to kind of change a little bit the mindset and the way organizations perceive and are able to work on some of the use cases and the challenges they have. And that's part of what we're going to share more today. So our partnership has been always strong, but I feel like in the last years, and especially working with you all and with Yubico like on a daily, weekly basis, I think we really achieve a point where the joint solutions are really robust, and we can tell everyone that we're actually modernizing the security solutions, improving the security posture, and doing so with being able to provide a very seamless user experience. So having said that, let's move into the actual content and what we wanted to share. So all yours,
Sure.
Josh.
Thanks so much, Martine. So, as Martine said, we are huge fans of Hyper over here, and we like Hyper because it allows us to bring forward an identity-focused security posture for entire organizations. Historically, when organizations have looked at the way they handle identity, have looked at the way they handle identity proofing and identity verification, they have generally reserved it for their quote unquote privileged users. However, the landscape of today with attackers compromising credentials means that all users are privileged users. We have lots of different use cases, and especially with the partner we worked with on this, they had lots of different user populations that they needed to cover, and they needed a user friendly experience that had really great UX, that had really great security behind it for all of their different populations of users. And this was frontline workers, this was back office workers, and this was those traditional privileged users. Um, part of the process that you need to go through when you approach your identity program is to think about how your users need to interact with systems, what regulations relate to those users, and how you expect them to interact with your customers as well. For front of house workers, the ability to provide authentication, strong and easy authentication in a way that wasn't disruptive to customer facing experiences was key. Um, with office workers, these are workers who generally have wider access to systems, wider access to data. With those workers, you can be a little bit more flexible with the authentication mechanisms. And again, working with HYPR has been an excellent partnership. We were able to move forward with YubiKeys for all the users, and then they had the option whether they wanted to use that key or use an application or use another authentication mechanism. But we tied everything to the initial credentials there and really provided that strong root of trust. And with your highest privilege users, your users who have the keys to the kingdom, you always know you need to ensure that they have the highest level of assurance when they are going through login processes, when they're going through re-verification processes. And with the hardware-backed security provided by physical tokens, you really can ensure that. We're going to dig in a little bit later into the actual details of how these populations were carved up and what we did to make sure that they were identified and handled correctly. But going into your program, looking at this particular case study, identifying those user populations and identifying the risk profiles of those user populations really is a super important place to start. Martine, do you want to go to the next slide?
Sure.
And we can we can talk a little bit about what risks are out there right now. And these numbers aren't going to be surprising to anyone. All of this comes from HYPR's 2025 State of the Passwordless Identity Assurance Report. 49% of financial firms were breached last year. That means if you're in a room with someone, you can just look to your left, and one of the two of you were likely breached in one way, shape, or form. And the commonality between all of these attacks, or the commonality between the bulk of these attacks, are identity, user accounts. Attackers are no longer breaking in. Martine said that when he started, he was breaking stuff. No longer need to do that. All you need to do is get a user account, and that is easier and easier. There are off-the-shelf toolkits that attackers can use to facilitate that. They can just buy lists of user IDs and passwords, and all of this are known, and it shows. Almost 90% of all attacks are tied in one way, shape, or form to identity. And this is impactful to your bottom line. An average of 2.5 million were lost per incident, and that's just average. That means that we have seen breaches going up to 4 or 5 million when you account for reputational damage, when you count for recovery, when you count for increases in insurance premiums. So it's not just an initial payout that is impactful. It is everything that follows on, and those really start to add up. And again, volume is just mind-boggling. We've seen attacks surge almost 75% as in 2024 compared to 2023, and those numbers are just going to keep going up. This is something we know. We know that it is risky out there. We know that it is dangerous out there, and we want to find and we want to provide solutions that work with users and for your users. Martine, do you want to go to the next slide?
Yeah, sure. Let me take that. And yeah, I think that those numbers are really, really important and critical to keep in mind, because it's what driving some of this effort, right? And the goals that the organization sets to themselves. So every time we talk with like different organizations, today we are focusing a little bit more on the financial sector, but this is also shared across other verticals, other areas, right? They have a couple of like mission critical goals that these items, these themes kind of always pop up in these conversations, right? One is the business continuity, right? Every solution needs to consider and take into account the fact that the organizations are there to do their business, right? So we need to ensure that we provide solutions that are secure enough, but also that they can enable the users across all the different areas and across all the different use cases to continue with their like work, right? So ensuring that the users have a pleasant experience and can work across their journey without interruption is one of the critical goals. So user experience plays a key part there, resiliency and like performance is another point, but this is a regular theme that always comes up. So this includes again having a secure mechanism to cover all the different situations, like also what happened with the onboarding, right? You cannot afford spending 3 days onboarding an employee. What happened when they lost access to their authenticator or the main mechanism to access their resources, right? You need to think about how to provide those recovery flows. What happened with the provisioning, right? And all those scenarios. So it's about like providing that continuity across all the different touch points. And that's a really important goal we always see. Second is brand protection. So the organizations have the mandate to protect their business, right? Their customers and their brand as part of that. So any gap in achieving the security goals might put or introduce risk to the brands. And finally, compliance, right? This being like historically has been a big driver of some of the changes in like security and how organizations perceive security. But in the same way that the threat landscape has changed recently and it continues to change, the compliance landscape have also changed a little bit. And we believe it has done it for good, right? And in a good way. Um, Primarily driven by needs, for example, having a more clear definition of what phishing resistant methods means and what phishing resistant authentication means. All the different compliance bodies have somehow started to follow and adopt some sort of requirements for this across all the different verticals, across all the different sectors. So whether you are regulated because you operate with, I don't know, like credit card payment processing, or you have any other type of requirements or things like that, there's now like a common definition of what phishing resistant mean, and that's been brought to a point where it's almost like the bare minimum across everything. And this is really good because it simplifies also like the conception of what needs to be, what are the minimal steps you need to do to be compliant, right? So in the past, it was sometimes about, hey, I need to implement certain password requirements for this regulation, these other ones here, other complexity requirements there. Now, I believe that we as an industry have a common standard of what phishing resistant means, with some caveats, with some changes, and again, having to think about like how it fits for your particular use cases. But this change in the compliance that we have started to see is really important, and is driving a little bit of these efforts. We believe it's for good because again, it's making a little bit easier life of everyone in terms of planning what compliance means. So let's move now to like putting all these together, right, and rethinking about the way we approach cybersecurity.
Yeah, and as Martin said, you get to really rethink what cybersecurity means, because we now have a standard set of marching orders across the board and across the globe. And that means that instead of tracking down specific nuances of this control for this system and that control for that system, you can take a global approach. Um,
Yeah, so let's just start. We have here like a couple of different items. I want to touch point on a couple. One is like this idea of proactive prevention, right? And this is like everyone a couple of years ago it was a buzzword. I don't think it's never a buzzword, but this idea of like the zero trust architectures and everything, where you need to think proactively, right? So the prevention is proactive, and you only grant access to trusted users, right? That's kind of one of the main primitives and one of the things we're driving, and part of one of what we look at the joint solution to offer to our customers. The second is around also secure onboarding and provisioning with IDB. We will touch a little bit on that later, but is this idea that again is no longer enough having the best phishing resistant authentication solution if you don't have a strong way to onboard and provision those secure credentials, right? So our approach, the way we look at it, and this is also something we're driving together with Yubico, is to make sure that that happens with a strong identity verification, identity proofing process. And again, you can be sure that you are validating the user's identity and not necessarily the account that they have in the technical system, right? It's about the person that is behind that device, that computer, or that mobile application, and not about like one particular technical record in a database, right? So it's all about that. And the other one is like user-friendly security, and this is something we have experienced it on our own. Every time our customers and the organizations that start working with us see that they can achieve a user experience that is friendly enough, that's what drives adoption. And we all believe that the only way to make this happen and rethink about security is doing in a way where users don't see like the security and the technical controls as a burden, but instead it's something that help them go through their digital work today life and have an easy way to deal with it. So
Yeah,
Josh, you want
and
to? Yeah.
building on that concept of user-friendly security, you also have the ability to move to a passwordless model. We know that passwords are the problem. Passwords are our biggest issue right now, and eliminating them eliminates a majority of risk that your organizations face. Whatever solution you go with, whatever solution you land on, you need to make sure that it is built with that compliant mindset built in. It should meet those compliance goals and exceed those compliance goals that you've outlined. And lastly, when we think about cybersecurity, we need to think about protection for all. It's no longer just about protecting your trusted partners, or it's no longer about protecting your crown jewels. Any account, any user can be a vector for attackers to abuse and break in, and so you need to protect every user, be them human or machine or whatever the identity is. You need to make sure that you have strong protection across the board.
Excellent. And that leads us to the next
Yeah, for
one.
sure. So, as Martine mentioned, you want to make sure that you roll phishing resistance out for all users, but you also need to be aware of the places where phishing resistance can fail, or where there are weaknesses in phishing resistant processes where you need that strong IDV. You need to be able to re-authenticate, or you need to be able to reestablish users. These are the 3 points in time that we generally view as places where users can fall out of phishing resistance. Onboarding can definitely be abused. If you're not doing strong identity verification during onboarding, you have no way of establishing that secure root of trust that you need to build off of. Registration of new devices, or replacement of devices, if you're sending out a new phone or a new laptop, you want to make sure that it is actually the user who is reestablishing their account on that. You don't want them calling the help desk to remove an authenticator because they lost their phone with their TOTP app. You want to make sure that they are able to reestablish and continue that chain of trust on the new device that they're being sent. Last but not least is recovery. Password resets are a total bummer. We know that we are spending way too much on password resets, and we are spending way too much on account lockouts. If you can remove that as a vector for attack, or if you can remove that as a threat, then you no longer have your help desk as a target for attackers, where they are calling up your help desk and impersonating employees and having authenticators removed from account or having password resets to break in. If you solve your recovery problem, again, you are working to build that phishing resistance baseline for your phishing-resistant users, which will lead to a phishing-resistant enterprise.
Yeah, yeah, excellent points. And to kind of continue with that kind of same concept, our approach, the way we look at it, is that phishing resistant authentication is again only effective and only impactful when the authentication and those security characteristics of phishing resistant authentication moves with the user, right? So this is also about like taking a risk reduction perspective, as we have been kind of discussing and talking about, and across all the different user touch points, right? So many of us work across like several devices, several different platforms. Every employee on any modern organization have access to like different channels, to different applications, and um, basically on a given day, they have like so many different touch points that um, the core concept of what we believe is going to be impactful and effective is to make sure that that phishing resistant is like following the user across all the different journeys and also across the business scenarios, right? Where we talk at the beginning, you have users that maybe have higher privileges and access more sensitive stuff than some others. So thinking about what is the right combination of the authentications and of the different recovery flows, of all the different onboarding flows, and all the way to provide that continuity. I think that's really important and part of what we are going um, to cover more with the business case. So I will jump right into that. This is kind of the core of what we wanted to share, and is built on top of what we have been discussing with a real work example.
Yeah, so let's dive in. We had a shared customer that kind of came to us and said, we want to achieve phishing resistance. We want to achieve phishing resistance across our entire scope of users, and we want to achieve phishing resistance in a way that is not going to disrupt their processes. It started because they had a breach. Like we said earlier, 45%, 50% of organizations are going to experience a breach this year. This organization experienced a breach, and it was a large breach, unfortunately. Um, Again, they had attacks against their users every day. They were being supercharged with AI tools to make the attacks more believable. And it is sometimes difficult to justify your end users being able to stay on top of these attacks because the phishing emails and the phishing processes can be so believable. Um, and they wanted to make sure that in this process, they didn't generate customer friction. The last thing they wanted was a teller on a line pulling out a phone to get an OTP code to type into a system, because that breaks eye contact, that breaks the flow of the transaction. And in the call center, they have mobile restricted spaces where they can't even support those modalities. Um, the solution really was to work with HYPR to find a way to build those processes that relied on strong identity verification and tie them to hardware tokens where the credentials could live in a cryptographically safe space. We worked on the multi-protocol key, which allows them to use both FIDO authentication and smart card-based authentication wherever they needed. It's the first product that has a biometric smart card in a strong but user-friendly way. And we started rolling out to privileged users and quickly expanded that to their customer-facing employees, and are currently working on their back office users right now. Um, in order to facilitate this rollout for this organization, over 100,000 people, they needed logistical help, however. And that is also where we were able to partner and work through those processes. Yubico has a delivery service where we can tie into HR systems or tie into accounting systems or tie into ServiceNow platforms and the like, and use those to distribute keys. And with the tie to HYPR's platforms, we were able to provision those keys using that identity verification to ensure the users were correctly associated with the credentials when they got them in their hands. Um, What this meant in the long run was a seamless login experience for the back office and front office users without the need to break eye contact. They simply needed to reach down and tap a key to go through the biometric processes for authentication. Um, the enablement of the delivery services and the enablement of the subscription service that Yubico offered, and the enablement of HYPR's managing of credentials and identity verification means that this was a huge rollout, a huge success, and it was done very, very quickly. A lot of the time when we think about these identity programs, we plan them out for years or 18 months, 24 months. The initial rollout for these users, their initial success story they saw after 6 to 9 months. So if a huge 200,000 plus person organization can deploy that quickly, anyone can deploy that quickly.
Yeah, yeah, that's a really important point. Also, one of the big things we start to see right where we were doing like the initial user testing like months ago, but also in the first pilots and everything is like all the user experience was improved, right? So you mentioned it, but like the ability to keep all the like phishing resistant characteristics either through like on a web interface with FIDO2 or logging into your Windows desktop. But doing all that with just a touch of the key, I think it significantly improve and make the life of the employees easier, right? So they were used to either have to remember a PIN or things like that, and just this just provides a very friendly and use like happy path to the authentication path. And the second one is also one of the goals that this organization had was to like have provide their employees with flexibility, right? So with Hyper and the combination of Yubico, the employees have the option to either use their mobile device to authenticate in certain scenarios, or as we were describing, just touch plug in and touch the key using the biometric controls, and that takes them to where they need to be. So I think yeah, to start to wrap up, again, we believe this is something that is definitely uh, like the same core values and the same outcomes that we achieve with this is something that the joint solutions can deliver for organizations, and everyone is more or less looking into that. So uh, those key business outcomes, kind of those objectives, I think are pretty clear. But we can just wrap up a little bit talking about those points.
Yeah, and I mean, the proof really is in the pudding. As soon as these systems were rolled out, we saw a significant reduction. The customer saw a significant reduction in security breaches because attackers knew they were no longer vulnerable to the phishing schemes that they had previously used to break in. Operationally, there were huge cost savings. Your help desk for password resets goes down. With the subscription service, you have the ability to really project the cost of the authentication that you're going to need, and the organizational and the logistical needs can be handled through the delivery service, so you no longer need to pay expensive security engineers to do logistical work. Finally, they were able to really prove their enhanced regulatory compliance by using this tooling. They can show to an auditor the ID verification for initial authentication. They can show how the future authentication processes are handled through cryptographically secure mechanisms, and they can prove without a shadow of a doubt that their authentication and login systems are strong and secure.
Yeah, 100%. And yeah, going to that as well, as we were discussing, the user productivity, the satisfaction, like looking at the users just touching a key, logging into their systems, and having that like friendly user experience really boosts the satisfaction, the morale, the productivity, and it's something that reduce some of the pain points of any large deployment of any large passwordless deployment. Also, future ready the security infrastructure, right? So by taking this approach, you are definitely modernizing the framework to be up to date to kind of the always changing threat landscape, and making sure that you have set yourself for success for the next couple of years when it comes to, again, these Gen AI attacks that we're seeing when people is being impersonated or things like that, or making sure that the like standard phishing kits and any type of more advanced threat can be also mitigated. And finally, like the resiliency across like the different touch points, but also in particular covering like recovery, right? And this is something that is sometimes overlooked, and we think that it was a great business outcome of like this solution, being able to see how all the different potential like unhappy paths are also covered in a way that is secure and resilient. So I think we're kind of at the top of the content. We want to thank everyone for definitely attendance. If there's any question or any follow up, more than happy, more than welcome to receive those and have this conversation.
For sure. Martina and I can both talk about this stuff for hours. So please abuse us, reach out. You're on LinkedIn. Just find our profile, send us a message, and we will attempt to answer any questions you have. Martina, it has been a pleasure chatting with you. Thank you so much for this opportunity.
Perfect. Yeah. Thank you very much. Likewise. And yeah, looking to continue our work